From Gestures to Words, My English Learning Adventure. Have you ever felt the excitement of speaking to someone from a different country, but didn't have the words? I know that feeling all too well. For years, I worked as a shoemaker, polishing shoes by the street near the airport. The hustle and bustle of people from all over the world passed by me daily, but there was one thing that kept me from talking to them. I didn't know English. I remember the first time I tried to communicate with a foreigner. A man came to me to get his shoes polished. He spoke a language I couldn't understand, and I was too embarrassed to try. So, I just smiled, nodded, and used gestures to show him what I was doing. He smiled back, but there was an awkward silence. This moment stayed with me. I realized that I was missing out on something important. Not just in my job, but in life. So, I made a decision. I was going to learn English. At first, it seemed impossible. I had no idea where to start. I couldn't afford formal classes, and the thought of speaking English with a stranger made me nervous. But then, one day, I stumbled upon something that would change everything: YouTube. I started searching for English learning podcasts and videos. I found a few lessons that were simple and easy to understand. At first, I didn't know much. But, as I listened to these podcasts, I began to pick up a few words here and there. Slowly but surely, I started to understand what was being said. I would repeat the words out loud, trying to mimic the way the speakers talk. It felt strange at first, but every time I repeated a word, I felt more confident. One day, a foreigner came to me again, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I knew a few basic phrases from the podcasts I had been listening to. I said, "Hello, how are you?" and smiled. The man smiled back, and to my surprise, he answered in English. We started a simple conversation about his day, and even though I didn't understand everything he said, I felt so proud of myself. For the first time, I was speaking to someone in English without relying on gestures. That moment was the beginning of my journey. Every day I learned a little more. I listened to more podcasts, repeating the sentences and words I heard. I realized that language wasn't just about memorizing words. It was about practice, patience, and building confidence. I made mistakes, yes, but each mistake taught me something new. As I continued my learning, I started to notice the impact on my work. More foreign passengers came to the airport, and I was able to communicate with them better. Instead of just polishing shoes, I began to give them directions, offer help, and even chat with them about their travels. It was amazing to see how my small efforts paid off. But the journey didn't stop there. Each new word I learned opened up more opportunities. I found myself enjoying the process, not just for the results but for the connections I could now make with others. And this is where my story gets even more interesting. With each step, I learned something new, not just about the English language, but about myself. The more I learned, the more I realized that I could achieve things I once thought were impossible. A dangerous mistake I didn't know about. As I continued my journey of learning English, I began to notice not only how my communication skills improved, but also how my overall understanding of the world expanded. I had started using the language to understand more than just simple phrases. I was learning new concepts, discovering things I never thought I'd be able to understand. One day, while I was polishing shoes for a customer, I noticed that my usual shoe cleaning product didn't seem to work as well as it used to. For years, I had been using the same cleaner. It was a chemical-based product that I'd bought from a local store when I first started my work. I'd always been told it was effective and reliable, so I had never thought to question it. But that day as I worked, I couldn't help but feel something was off. The cleaner didn't give the shoes the shine they used to have, and I noticed that the leather was beginning to look a bit dull. I had no idea what was happening, but I was too busy with customers to worry about it. Little did I know I was about to learn something important that would change the way I worked. One evening, after finishing my shift, I was listening to a podcast in English about shoe care. I had gotten better at understanding the language, and I was starting to enjoy learning about various topics. The podcast host mentioned the importance of using safe and effective cleaning products for shoes. I thought to myself, I wonder if the cleaner I use is really safe? Curious, I looked up the name of the product on the internet. To my shock, I discovered that the cleaner I had been using for years was not only outdated, but it also contained harmful chemicals that could damage leather and even pose a risk to health. It was a product that had been banned in many countries for its dangerous ingredient. I couldn't believe it. How could I have used this for so long without knowing? The more I researched, the more I learned about the dangers of using certain chemicals in shoe cleaning products. I found articles and videos explaining how some of these chemicals could cause irreversible damage to the materials of the shoes. Worse, they could cause health problems if inhaled or absorbed through the skin. I felt a mix of shock and guilt. I had been unknowingly harming the shoes I worked so hard to clean, and I had no idea. But the most incredible part of this story wasn't just about the mistake I had made. It was about how learning English had led me to this discovery. If I hadn't been listening to that podcast in English, I wouldn't have known what to look for. I wouldn't have understood the warning signs or realized how dangerous my product was. It was through the process of learning English that I had gained access to information that had the potential to change my business and protect my customers. That night, I decided to make a change. I threw away the old cleaner and researched safer, more effective alternatives. I found eco-friendly products that were both safe for the shoes and for my health. The next day, I started using the new cleaner, and I immediately saw the difference. The shoes looked shinier, and the leather felt smoother. I was able to work more efficiently, and I felt much better knowing that I was no longer using a harmful product. This experience taught me two valuable lessons. First, the importance of questioning what we use and trusting that there is always room for improvement. And second, how learning a new language can open doors to new knowledge and opportunities. If I hadn't taken the time to learn English, I might still be using that dangerous product without knowing the risk. As I shared this discovery with my customers, I realized that the power of language wasn't just in speaking to others, it was in gaining access to information that could change lives. And for me, learning English had done just that. It had not only helped me communicate better with people from around the world, but it had also empowered me to make smarter choices in my work and my life. From that day on, I became more mindful of the products I used and the information I consumed. I realized that learning English was about more than just learning words. It was about expanding my world, improving my skills, and making better decisions. A misunderstanding in the street. How I prevented a crisis. One afternoon, as I was polishing shoes near the airport, something unexpected happened that changed the course of my day. I had just finished cleaning a pair of shoes for a traveler when I noticed a commotion a little further down the street. A man and a woman were shouting at each other, and people were beginning to gather around, watching the scene unfold. At first, I thought it was just another argument, but then I realized that something was off. The man involved was a foreigner, and I could see from the look on his face that he was trying to explain something to the woman, but no one was listening to him. The crowd was growing, and it was clear that tensions were rising. People were starting to point fingers and accuse the man of causing trouble. I couldn't just stand there and watch. I had learned enough English by this point to understand the basics, and I knew that the situation could easily escalate if no one stepped in. But how could I help? I wasn't sure what was going on, but I could tell that the man was frustrated and scared. I walked over to the scene, trying to remain calm. The crowd's attention was focused on the shouting, so I took a deep breath and approached the foreigner. As soon as I reached him, he looked at me with a sense of relief. "Excuse me," he said in English. "I didn't mean any harm. She thinks I'm doing something wrong, but I'm just trying to get to my hotel." It was then that I understood the misunderstanding. The woman had mistaken the foreigner for a troublemaker, likely because he was standing too close to her or maybe had accidentally bumped into her. The crowd had already formed a judgment, thinking that the man was harassing the woman. But when I heard him speak, I realized that he was only lost and trying to ask for directions. I turned to the woman and, using the limited English I had learned, I explained the situation. "He's not bothering you. He's just trying to get to his hotel. He doesn't understand the language well, and he's confused." I gestured toward the man, trying to help him communicate. The woman looked at me, then back at the man, and slowly her expression softened. She seemed to understand that he wasn't a threat. But the situation wasn't over yet. The crowd still looked suspicious, and I could see that some people were ready to jump to conclusions. I decided to take a more active role in clearing up the confusion. I told the man in English, "I will help you. I can translate, and we will sort this out." The foreigner nodded gratefully. I spoke to the woman again, telling her that I would guide the man to the hotel he was looking for. With my help, the tension slowly dissipated. I walked the foreigner to the corner of the street, where he could catch a taxi to his hotel. The woman, now realizing her mistake, apologized, though I could tell she was still a bit embarrassed by the situation. It wasn't just about helping one person that day. It was about preventing a situation from spiraling out of control, something that could have escalated into a serious misunderstanding. I couldn't help but feel proud of myself for stepping in, not just because I had helped someone, but because I had been able to communicate in a language I had once struggled with. When I returned to my spot, I realized how far I had come. Learning English had given me the ability to bridge gaps between people, to step in when things went wrong, and to bring clarity where there was once confusion. It had empowered me to make a difference in a real-life situation, and it was moments like this that reminded me why I started learning in the first place. The foreigner had thanked me profusely before leaving, and the crowd had dispersed. But in my heart, I knew that this was one of the many lessons that language had taught me. English wasn't just a tool for ordering food or asking for directions. It was a key that opened doors to help others, to solve problems, and to make a positive impact on the world around me. The power of English, how teaching helped me grow. As my English skills improved, so did my understanding of the world around me. It wasn't just about communicating with foreign customers anymore, it was about transforming my approach to everything I did. I realized that the more I knew, the more I could do, both in my job and in my personal life. One day, a friend of mine who owned a small shop near the airport came to me for help. He knew that I had been learning English and thought I might be able to help him. "I have some friends who are interested in learning English," he said. "Would you be willing to teach them? I can pay you for your time." At first, I was hesitant. Teaching was a big responsibility, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to take on that role. But then I thought about it for a moment. This could be an opportunity not only to practice my own English, but also to share what I had learned with others. Plus, the extra income would help me improve my financial situation. I agreed, and so began my journey as an English teacher. I started teaching small groups of friends and acquaintances, most of whom were also looking to improve their English for practical reasons. Some wanted to speak better for their jobs, others for travel, and a few simply wanted to learn for personal growth. Teaching English was challenging, but it was also incredibly rewarding. As I explained new concepts and corrected mistakes, I found that my own understanding of the language deepened. When you teach something, you see it from a different perspective, and this helped me become more confident in my own skills. I realized that teaching wasn't just about helping others learn, it was also about reinforcing my own knowledge. Moreover, I noticed that the more I taught, the better my own English became. My students asked questions I hadn't thought of before, and this forced me to think more critically about grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. As I helped them improve, I was also improving myself. The best part was that my teaching work became an additional source of income. Not only did it allow me to earn extra money, but it also helped me connect with more people in the community. Word spread quickly about my language lessons, and soon I was teaching several groups a week. The more I taught, the more I found that my customers at the shoe stand also started to take notice of my English skills. They asked me questions about learning the language, and I was happy to share the methods that had worked for me. In turn, my English improved even further. I started to use the language not just for basic communication, but also for more complex ideas and explanations. It wasn't just about knowing how to ask for directions or order food anymore. I could explain concepts, discuss ideas, and engage in deeper conversations. My confidence grew, and so did my ability to help others. Teaching also had a ripple effect on my business. Because I had started teaching English, I was able to connect with more international clients who came to my shoe stand. They were impressed by my ability to communicate, and they began to refer me to their friends and colleagues. This led to more customers and, consequently, more income. I realized that my decision to learn English had not only opened new doors for me personally, but it had also given my business a boost. In the end, teaching English to others became an integral part of my journey. It not only helped me improve my own language skills, but it also provided me with a new source of income and allowed me to contribute to my community. It was a reminder that learning a language is not just about gaining new knowledge. It's about sharing that knowledge with others and growing together. Through teaching, I discovered that English wasn't just a tool for communication, it was a key to unlocking opportunities, both for myself and for those around me.